Celina Close, and she is delegating on the role of trustee in policy development, the professionalism policy. Good evening, Celina. So again, just to remind you, you have 5 minutes to delegate. I will be keeping time on my phone. Be mindful that you stay within the parameters of the rules of the delegation, and I will let you know when you have 1 minute left. I'll try to make sure you see, because I don't know that everybody always sees, and then I'll open the floor for questions. Okay. So let me know when you're ready, and you can begin.
I'm ready. Good evening. I'm here this evening to speak to the professionalism policy as it relates to the responsibilities of the board, the importance of you representing and involving the students, parents, and community. Many people seem to think that trustees and boards have no right to involve themselves in setting procedures. They are wrong. The law says otherwise. Let me explain. Each province has a different power. In each province, different powers are given to school boards and trustees. Luckily, in Ontario, legislation has given meaningful powers of oversight. Under the Education Act, the board as a whole is legally accountable for its decisions, rather than individual trustees. As members of the board, trustees are elected and accountable to the public for the collective decisions of the board and for the delivery and quality of educational services. The Trustees' Code of Conduct, Section 5.1, requires you to fulfill your duties in accordance with the Education Act to promote student achievement and well-being under Section 169.1. I understand this to mean that the board has the duty to ensure the policies, procedures, and actions all promote student achievement and well-being, and that the board has the ability to set procedure and dictate implementation of the actions. This is a very active and powerful position. I would like to highlight Section 169.1.1e. My ask this evening is a simple one. Make it clear that parents will have a meaningful role in finding a solution and that the board will protect that role. It is your duty as a trustee to represent all constituents, and this ask serves to reduce the tension from adults and is a small step to rebuilding the trust and confidence that has been eroded. Succinctly, my ask is that you amend the policy proposal before you tonight so that it explicitly includes a role for the board in setting of related procedures, and that these procedures are to be developed in a way that includes a meaningful role for students and parents, and that respect the rights of school staff, recognize the diversity of community opinions, support the practicalities of school operations, and above all, meets the needs of the students. I would like to highlight an example of a policy and procedure about a sensitive process, placement of principals and promotions to VP, that include a parental voice in a meaningful way. This was developed jointly by staff and the TDSB and has been in place and is working successfully for many years. It reads, parents will be consulted on any proposed changes to the procedures involving parental participation. I don't see anything stopping the HDSB from putting in place a process that follows this example. An active board, continued parental involvement, and commitment will ensure that poor decision-making is avoided and that the education, well-being, and safety of the most important assets in the education system, the students, are upheld. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Celina. I really appreciate that. Trustee Collard, you have a question.
Yes, I do. First of all, I'd like to thank you for coming here this evening. I know you've been quite actively involved in this issue. I do want to clarify something. In the Education Act, it says very clearly that trustees are to stay out of the day-to-day operations of schools, that the operations fall under the purview of the director. And so in school boards, we do not vote on procedures that affect administration. We only vote on procedures that affect governance. And that is very precisely laid out in the Education Act. We are forbidden from getting involved in the day-to-day operations. And so we try our very best to stand back. Of course, the director does bring procedures to our attention, and we ask questions, we make suggestions, but we do not control what goes into the procedure. The director does. I understand that you would like us to make it clear that parents will have a meaningful role in finding a solution, and we absolutely want you to have a meaningful role. This impacts your students, your children, your families, your communities, and we want parents to have a meaningful role. And that's why we have the delegations. That's why we have the emails that come in, the phone calls that come in. We speak to everyone who calls us and everyone who writes us, hopefully gets a response. Sometimes we get deluged and it's difficult, but we do try to respond to every parent. And we do try to listen to every delegation. We understand the perspectives of parents is not always the same as the perspective of the people that run the board, because you live in the community and the people that run the board might not live in your community. And so that is a difference. But we do want parental, student input, community input, stakeholder input, because you are the people that we serve. And so I do appreciate that, and thank you for bringing that in your delegation.
So just to clarify, so you don't see an issue in including this in this procedure?
I'm sorry, what would you like to include in the procedure?
The parents will be consulted on any proposed changes to the procedure involving parental participation.
That would be part of an administrative procedure. What we're dealing with right now is the policy. The procedure gets written after the policy is approved.
And my ask is that, so can you explain what the board's involvement is in the procedures?
We are presented the procedures by the director. We give our feedback and input, and sometimes the director makes modifications based on
Correct.
our feedback and input.
That's exactly.
Yeah, so we can ask for this, but it's the director's decision at the end of the day whether or not to include something like that in a procedure, because procedures are beyond our purview. I know that that's not something you like to hear, but that's what the Education Act says.
This actual piece was negotiated between the staff and the board at Toronto District School Board.
I'll have to look into that further.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Are there any further questions from any other trustees? Again, Celina, thank you so much for coming. Again, as I mentioned to the person before you, this has come up in the agenda, so it will be following the Glenview boundary review. Thank you for your